We are staying on top of breaking news out of India right now, where an Air India plane with at least 240 people on board has crashed. A city police commissioner said it appears that no one has survived that crash.
We do want to bring in aviation expert Scott Hamilton. And Scott, we are getting more details as this morning progresses. So the plane lost signal less than a minute after takeoff, crashed a few minutes later. In your expert opinion, what could have gone wrong here?
Well, I did see a video that showed up on the internet that, based on what you could see, and it wasn't a absolutely clear video, but based on what I could see, it appeared that the flaps had not been extended on takeoff. Now, Flight Radar 24 also indicates that the airplane took off perhaps on about halfway down an 11,000-foot runway, which is a very short runway for a heavily loaded 787 that used maybe about 5,900 feet. The investigators are going to look at the flight data recorder, the cockpit voice recorder, which will affirm or not that the flaps and slats were extended. If they were not extended, and you take off on a 5,900-foot remaining part of the runway, that's a recipe for disaster. The investigators will also look at the pilot history, the airplane maintenance history, runway condition, wind condition, whether there were birds involved. But the video appears to indicate the flaps were not extended on takeoff.
So the 787 is one of Boeing's newer planes, but it did have a lot of problems during its early production. At one point, some airlines even grounding it. Last year, Boeing said it did extensive testing on all issues that the FAA brought up. So is this plane as safe as Boeing claims it is?
Well, yes, it is. And in fact, I'm in Paris now for the Paris Air Show. That begins next week, and I flew over here on a 787 on United Airlines out of Chicago. It's a safe airplane. All of the problems that were part of its early developmental period and immediately after entry into service in 2011 have been resolved. This airplane that crashed has been in service for 10 or 11 years, so it's gone through a few maintenance cycles with the airline Air India. Again, the airplane is proved to be very safe. This is the first fatal crash of a 787 since it entered service in 2011.
And as you mentioned, there clearly could be many other factors at play, but we can't ignore the situation in relation to other things that Boeing has been dealing with. So the question really becomes, how does Boeing bounce back from this after only just reaching a deal with the Justice Department for its other deadly plane crashes?
Well, first off, I would caution everybody against pointing a finger at Boeing. We just don't know enough yet. The smoke is still rising from the crash site. The bodies haven't been recovered. Certainly the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder haven't been recovered. I doubt very much if the air traffic control recording tower tapes have been analyzed in their entirety yet. So let's not go pointing fingers at Boeing right now.
A very important perspective there. And of course, as you just mentioned, you're at the Paris Air Show. How much of an impact is this going to have in the conversations you're going to be hearing there, do you think?
Well, the show doesn't really start until Monday. So it could be possible that between now and Monday, there could be an initial readout of the flight data and cockpit voice recorders and certainly the air traffic control tapes. By Monday, I think we could have a fair amount of information that could give us some answers. And if it turns out this is an airline issue and not an airplane issue, I don't think Boeing has to worry about any particular impact. Obviously, the investigators are going to look at whether or not the engines were doing full power. If the flaps and slats were not extended, as the video seems to be, They need to understand why they weren't extended. Was it because the pilots missed that procedure in the takeoff preparation, or was there a mechanical issue? But if there was a mechanical issue, and even if it was a pilot issue, there should have been warnings, oral warnings that the flaps are not in the proper position. But when you're taking off from a 5,900-foot remaining part of the runway, that's just way too short for a fully loaded 787. So I think there are going to be human factors involved and not necessarily airplane factors.
Scott Hamilton, aviation expert, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.